There are these contrasts in the Bible, these ways that what is written is so shocking that we can't even hear it most of the time. Because human brains are mostly set on autopilot and we conflate what we hear with what we already believe to be true. This can make it quite hard to hear the Bible as it is because we end up softening edges that are actually quite hard. Specifically, I think it could be easy to hear Jesus say, "How often I have desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings," and think, "Aw, that's sweet. Jesus loves me and wants to protect me," which I grant you is part of the message, but it overlooks the radicalness of that meaning. Debbie Thomas starts to explain it this way. Here's what I find so startling about the image. If maternal power, acumen, or success were the characteristics Jesus wanted to emphasize in his choice of metaphor, he could have used any number of more appropriate Old Testament images to make his point. God as enraged she-bear, God as soaring mother eagle, God as laboring woman, God as mom of a healthy, happy toddler, God as a skilled midwife. But these are not the images he chooses. Instead, on this second Sunday in Lent, Luke's gospel invites us to contemplate Jesus as a mother hen whose chicks don't want her. Though she stands with her wings wide open, offering welcome, belonging, shelter, her children refuse to come home to her. Her wings, arms, are empty. This is, in other words, a woman, a mother bereft, a mother in mourning, a mother struggling with failure and futility. Whoa. And I think that since this is about Jerusalem, which was the center of Jewish power and influence, and lack of power and lack of influence, and because Luke's gospel was written after the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE, I don't think we're supposed to miss the contrast between a mother hen reaching out her empty wings, wishing to protect her chicks, and the golden eagle that the Roman Empire used as a symbol of its imperial power. And this is where we're dealing with God and Jesus upending our expectations. A contrast between an eagle and a chicken. We'd expect God to be the eagle, right? I mean, Deuteronomy has that imagery, as Debbie mentioned. But no, we have a contrast between a strong predator and a vulnerable prey, and we're told that Jesus is like the prey. And worse, like the prey trying with all her might to protect her even more vulnerable young and failing to do so. It sort of turns my stomach. I see in my head Ukrainian and Ethiopian mothers holding their babies and trying to protect them while bombs drop around them. And that actually clarifies the image for me, because if bombs are dropping on mothers hovering over their babies, trying to keep them alive, and the choice is to see God in the bombs or the mothers, the choice is easy. God is the one hovering over, trying to protect, even when God can't protect. It still turns my stomach, though. And I can even see why people might prefer to think of God in the power of the bomb rather than the powerlessness of the mother. I think we'd expect the eagle, not the mother hen. But that's not the God we worship. I don't think it can be ignored that Luke is using this passage to foreshadow Jesus' death and resurrection. The Jesus Seminar believes this whole passage to be a creation of Luke, a way that he was trying to make sense of Jesus's life, death, and resurrection. The Pharisees are warning Jesus that if he doesn't change his ministry, he'll get killed, which is, it turns out, true. But Jesus responds that he isn't done doing the work he needs to do. They want him to be afraid and have that fear change his path. And Jesus does seem to understand. But he holds strong in the face of fear. He knows his vulnerability. He understands it, but it doesn't change his path. A mother hen is vulnerable, but she still stretches out her wings for her more vulnerable chicks. The mother hen metaphor fits rather terrifyingly well with the reality of Jesus' impending death. Debbie Thomas, again, writes, yes, Jesus mocks Herod by calling him a fox, but he never argues that the fox isn't dangerous. He never promises his children immunity from harm. I mean, let's face it. If a determined fox wants to kill a brood of downy chicks, he will find a way to do so. What Jesus, the mother hen, offers is not the absence of danger, but the fullness of his unguarded, open-hearted, wholly vulnerable self in the face of all that threatens and scares us. Those words were good. You want to hear them again, I think. What Jesus, the mother hen, offers is not the absence of danger, but the fullness of his unguarded, open-hearted, wholly vulnerable self in the face of all that threatens and scares us. This, of course, suggests that the sort of strength God offers, the sort of strength God asks for from us, is not the golden eagle or balm kind. It's the vulnerable kind. And that is the world turned upside down by faith bit. What on earth is vulnerable strength? Except, I don't know, maybe everything. Isn't it just strength and weakness? Yes, it is. That's the God being unexpected thing. Vulnerable strength is a mother hen with wings open, ready to protect chicks willing to huddle under them, even if they aren't there, even when she herself may be swept away, because she hopes that if she is, her chicks may be able to live. To get good at vulnerability as strength, though, probably doesn't require having to practice it at the threat of life level. To be ready to do that sort of vulnerability requires practice with the so-called easy stuff, to build up our vulnerability muscles. Vulnerability is saying, I'm scared, or I'm sad, rather than putting on a mask of impenetrability and pushing through. Vulnerability is saying, I don't know, and taking the risk that someone might think we're ill-informed, or I can't, when someone might find you weak or not trying hard enough. Vulnerability is allowing ourselves to see other people's pain without looking away or running to a quick fix. This is hard stuff. Vulnerability is staying with our own pain rather than pushing it away or down or running to a quick fix or trying to push it off on someone else. #blame. You may have noticed that for many Christians, the incarnation is the ultimate example of vulnerability. The idea is that God, who is God, the creator of all that is, takes on human vulnerability and pain and mortality in the form of Jesus, and in doing so moves from invulnerable to vulnerable to be with us. Truth be told, I have never resonated with that, even when theologians I otherwise adore say so. A friend of mine, for whom incarnation is one of the most important parts of his faith, laughed at me once about that and said, but aren't you a panentheist? Translation, Don't you believe that God is everywhere and everything and all that exists within the divine? Yes, yes, I am. He said, well, doesn't that make incarnation sort of redundant for you? It was a helpful aha moment for me because yes, actually incarnation is sort of redundant for me. Now, I need you to know, if you are a person who derives great meaning from incarnation, like my dear friend, please know that you are in the majority in our faith tradition, and I am the odd one out. But I'm going to keep talking because sometimes others are also the odd ones out and like to know they aren't alone. So I believe that God already has all the vulnerability in the world, literally. God is with all those who are struggling in every way. Or to sum that up, I believe in a vulnerable God. Which is to say that I believe vulnerability is sacred. And because I try to practice it regularly, I believe that vulnerability is really, really hard work. Especially when one is trying to practice vulnerability for the sake of honesty and connection and modeling that none of us are impenetrable, but trying to do that without causing undue harm to others. The balance is not easy, and I am quite capable of having what Brene Brown calls emotional vulnerability hangovers. That is, I am pushing vulnerability today, but I try to balance it as well, acknowledging that it can and has been wielded as a tool in some cases, and we're not trying to use it as a tool. There's no tools in this. It's weakness and vulnerability, not power or manipulation. If God is vulnerable, then we are not excused from our own vulnerability, nor asked to pretend it away. I think this is why Ash Wednesday starts Lent by asking us to remember that we are mortal, so that we can remember to live our lives with intention. When we are vulnerable, we remember how tender we are, how easily hurt, how close things are that could harm us. We open ourselves to others who are hurt and harmed or displaced or attacked, and we break our hearts open to allow others in. We can be moved once again, moved to create a world that is more just and equitable so that the most vulnerable are no longer forced to take on the pain that the most powerful avoid. That, I think, is the power of vulnerability, the power to break our hearts open, which moves us to create a better world. May God help us.